Behavior has just announced the upcoming potential rework that School Merchant might have, and they are looking for feedback regarding this rework design. So let's take a look at everything. First of all, Behavior has acknowledged that the School Merchant is one of the most hated characters in the game due to how badly she was originally designed, and how unfun her kit was after the rework for many players. They also stated that her kit was significantly more complex than usual, which is something I don't really agree with, considering we have killers like the Knight, Vecna and Dracula nowadays, which are in my opinion significantly more difficult than School Merchant. Their objective are to make her fun to play as both sides, keep the intel part of her kit and make it easier to understand, and move away from her passive power of setting up drones into something more interactive. So, in other words, take away what they called the set and forget playstyle and change her from a setup killer to a chase killer / anti-loop killer. They also know that the new design is not going to be similar at all to the old School Merchant. In other words, if you liked her laser tagging playstyle, it's over for you. For the rest of players that are not Pixel Bush, this means we're getting a completely new killer, kinda like the original Freddy rework. So first of all, the School Merchant can still use and place drones around the map. She will have a total of 5, and these will scan around the area and give her intel once they catch a survivor that will show up on her radar. It seems like her 2 scan lines are returning back, as well as the stealth mode that they removed previously, so now survivors have to keep an eye on the direction the lines are coming from the drone, but they won't be visible anymore like they are now. The devs decided to change this because the old scan lines were visually loud and they clashed with the rest of the game's look and feel. In my opinion, I found it cool how this character could change the map into something more futuristic and cyberpunkish, and there are much worse things clashing with the game's look and feel cosmetic wise. Now comes the fun part, because for the first time ever, the School Merchant can take control of the drones from a distance. When she is controlling the drones, she becomes undetectable, similar to the Twins and the Singularity. The stealth drones move a bit faster than her by default, and they consume a new resource, which is the drone power that is unique for each drone controlled. Power is consumed slowly while the drone is idle, and it's consumed a bit more when it is moving. Additionally, School Merchant can boost the drone speed with drone propulsion, sending the drone flying forwards at a high speed relative to how much it was charged. Hitting a survivor with a drone will injure them, and if you collide with anything, the drone is destroyed and you go back to the School Merchant. As you can see, her power has completely changed into something more interactive and similar to a chase projectile killer, kinda like Houndmaster. You now have to position your drones correctly and pilot them in order to hit survivors. All of her effects, like Hindered, Haste, Lock-on and Claw Traps, are completely gone in order to make her power significantly easier to understand for new players and casuals, and replaced with this drone pilot power. Now it's easier to understand. If a drone is still, it's scanning. If a drone is moving, they are dangerous. In both cases, you must avoid drones, but this time, dodging them is easier to understand compared to the previous design. Something important to note is that it does not say that the School Merchant loses her undetectable when placing a drone, and considering how she got a change to her turn radius recently, it is possible that she will still be able to access this power and be a pseudo-stealth killer on command. Now comes the part that I completely disagree with, and that is the drone hacking minigame. This feature is still in the game just like before, however the devs say that there is a higher risk and a better reward. When a drone is disabled by a survivor, they get to see the aura of the School Merchant, giving them useful intel. If the hack is failed, then they are revealed with killer instinct and they cannot attempt another hack for a short period of time. They say that this increases the tension while hacking and giving a counterplay to survivors against the School Merchant's kit. Survivors get the aura reading, so it is much better than before, but it also says that the impact of missing a hack is more impactful. However, this is not true. Previously, you would get lock-on stacks and get an injured state, so sometimes you were able to hit a survivor twice and double tap them. Unless you're able to pilot a drone the moment this killer instinct is revealed, the hacking minigame actually became much better for survivors and the punishment for missing is significantly less than before. But that's not all. A school merchant is supposed to get another power aside from her drones, and this is a global detection power with no name decided yet. Once her second power is charged, she can activate it to produce a global sound for all survivors. After that sound happens, any survivor who is currently sprinting will be revealed on her radar. Crouching, standing still, and hiding in lockers will prevent you from being detected. This was done to give players an easy way to understand what is happening when they play against School Merchant by taking an easy concept to understand. Basically, red light, green light. This power reminds me of how Lion works from Rainbow Six Siege, so I assume it's the exact same concept. There is still no clear answer to when this rework will be released, but they do admit that it is going to be a long while since they are focusing on quality of life changes currently. Most likely, this means that we are not going to see this rework until the next year or sometime around December of 2025. So let's talk about her proposed kit, and there is a lot to take in. First of all, I love the introduction of the stealth drone back into her power. I always thought that the current scan lines at all times were indeed ugly compared to how before you could see the drones working around the map and only active once they caught someone, so seeing it back is welcome. However, this comes with the problem that it is not intuitive to understand for a player who just got this killer for the first time. The previous version was made specifically to make it easier to understand for these players, so now I fear that newer players will be constantly caught by the drones, whereas more advanced players will still be able to dodge it with ease. Next up, the drone piloting mode. How I imagine this power is a similar version of the Engineer's Fang of the Cenobites, where you can pilot a projectile in order to hit survivors from a distance. It is unknown if the drones will have elevation or if they will be hovering around the ground similar to Dracula's bat form and bypassing vaults and pallets, and this is super important to know. If the drones work like an Archangel launcher from Black Ops 6 or the homing arrows from the Assassin's Creed games, where you can pilot the projectile to hit survivors by doing some crazy maneuvers, then I absolutely see this character being skyrocketed in popularity, as that type of playstyle sounds incredibly fun to play as, and also to dodge. In that regards, I feel like the developers decided to go for an easy to understand, easy to use power that was made for compilations on YouTube, and it's going to be significantly flashier than the old compass tech or laser tagging that she had before. Of course, this also means that her identity was completely lost, and this is honestly pretty sad. I always will stand behind the opinion that post-rework School Merchant was okay, and the real problem is not her power, but rather the fact that DPD is just not friendly for beginners, and there must be a tutorial explaining how each killer power works, which is incorporated on the game without us having to search an Odzdarva video. She was really easy to counter if you knew what you were doing, but very hard to understand for newer players, and that's what led to her insane kill rate, not the fact that she was S tier. Add in also how the community is absolutely entitled and they give up against her constantly, and you have the formula for a very hated killer. If the go next penalties were added before they got her to this character, we could have seen the real kill rate she had instead of the inflated one from before. However, unless we see how the drones work, how easy they are to get value, and if they can fly vertically or not, then we cannot make a decision yet on how strong this rework version will be and how annoying she will be to face. But we can talk about the drone hacking thingy, and this is yet again an example of why she will still have the problems of before. Right now, if you are a veteran, you know that you can hack the drones of the School Merchant. How did you know? Most likely because you saw a video on YouTube about it, as it is now common knowledge. However, imagine being a new player that has no idea about this game, or a casual player who has not watched a single hour from a streamer ever. Now they see that the new character will detect them with the stealth drones, and these drones are also capable of injuring them once they contact that survivor. This is a clear indicator that you should stay away from the drones, because if not, they will hurt you. So this hacking minigame is not explained at all for newer players. So, despite the reward being bigger with the aura reveal, what needs to be done is to explain to new players that they can hack the drones in the first place, because for now, for a player with zero idea, the hacking mechanic is completely useless. However, against a veteran, they get to see your aura after hacking a drone. Additionally, missing the hacking minigame is really hard to do. Unless you lack fingers in your hand, it's basically impossible to miss the minigame, and usually the only reason players miss it in the first place is when the killer pressures them with their own presence, by which point you can see the survivors hacking your drones, so the killer instinct is completely useless in the majority of cases. However, something interesting is that if the undetectable status effect is kept on her kit, this means that you can sometimes prevent the survivors from seeing your aura if you time the undetectable right. Then, let's talk about the new red light green light power. Once again, for the first time against this killer, you won't know how this power works like, but it is much clearer than the drone hacking minigame. The devs didn't specify if walking would trigger this tracking, only sprinting does. I personally think that this power is going to be useless most of the times, because a survivor that is far away from this killer can simply crouch or stand still as they have no pressure whatsoever. And any survivor that is near the school merchant where she can force you to move is completely pointless, as you can already see those survivors. So it's just going to be a worse version of the Doctor's static blast. It is also not specified if interacting with objects affects this power in any way, as survivors can just repair gens or break hexes while this green light red light power is active. I will be sharing this feedback with the devs in the link they put on the post. And if you have any feedback with this kit, let them know too, as this is your chance. This rework is the proposed one, not the guaranteed one, so a lot of things might change. For example, the previously announced Trickster rework revert was also completely cancelled, and they will instead make a more extensive rework in the far future, just to give you an idea before you complain and say that the game is dead, that there is a chance that the devs will hear your opinion and make changes in order to make School Merchant into a fun character. Let me know what you think, thank you for watching, and have a nice day!